Good morning, everybody. I'm Russ Reed, and I'm the Executive Director of the National Center for the Biotechnology Workforce. And I'm delighted today because we have Dr. Alan Murdock, who's the Vice President of Economic and Workforce Development at Forsyth Technical Community College. Full disclosure today, Dr. Murdock is my boss. But we're also joined by Dr. Tom Tubon from Madison Community College, and also our great technician, Sean Killebrew from Forsyth Tech. This is a series of interviews we're doing with highly positioned people, both in business, industry, and workforce, to give our Leadership Institute, which is an institute which is a part of a grant called InnovATEBIO, based out of Austin Community College, Texas, where the National Center for the Biotechnology Workforce is the lead on Goal 3, which is a workforce component. And Tom and I, as co-PIs, share Goal 3. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Murdock, we're going to ask you a few questions today, and please be informal as you can be. I know you personally because you are my boss, and I have always enjoyed your ability to ask the right questions and also bring out the best in us. So I, first off the bat, want to say that I have really appreciated your leadership, and I think you and I have had several of those conversations personally. So I'm hoping today that the fellows who will be the participants in this Leadership Institute will start to see that and gain that insight that you have, that special insight. So the first question is me, and then what I'll do is I'll ask you a couple, and I'll turn it over to Tom. He'll ask you a couple, and then we'll go back and forth, round robin like that. So my first question to you is, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and presently what you do at the college.
Okay, sure. So I got the softball question first. Fantastic. As you stated earlier, I'm the Vice President of Economic and Workforce Development here at Forsyth Technical Community College in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I've been with the community college probably about 22 years or so. In the business of the community college. At Forsyth Tech, I've only been here about 9 years. My background, educational background, bachelor's in communications, an MBA, and finally a doctorate in community college leadership. My work background, as I was working through school, I did a variety of jobs. The last one before I started working for community college was I was working for a mom and pop IT shop. So if you remember 22 years ago, I was doing the very technical work of installing network interface cards in computers. Today, if I said that, people would just laugh at me, right? Things have changed, right? So I started working for another community college about 22 years ago and worked my way through the college. Starting off in customer service, going into computers, going into sales, going into professional development, and finally ending up in economic development at that college. And then from there, transitioning to Forsyth Technical Community College as the Vice President of Economic and Workforce Development. Here, I work with about 13,000 students annually in short-term training, and I'll give you the big buckets. We can go a little deeper if you want to, but the big buckets are a lot of first responder training. Right? So the police, your paramedics, your firefighters, some healthcare training, entry-level healthcare training. We do a lot of that with nurse aid and nurse aid 2 and phlebotomy. Some trades. We are very proud of our trades programming, one of which is the electrical lineman. Unfortunately, I have like a 6-month waiting list to get into that class. So I'm trying to figure out how to expand that because there's a need, there's a demand from our local businesses. And so we need to figure out how to put more people through that. For purposes of this conversation, I also have what we call our business and industry training group. And so they are working with local businesses, whether that is small businesses, how to start a small business or how to help your small business grow, apprenticeships, contract training for local businesses. So as a community college going into a business and upskilling them on process improvement or Excel or something along those lines. And then finally, what we call our North Carolina customized training, which is working with companies, either local companies to expand their workforce or working with companies that think they want to come to Winston-Salem and talking to them about how we could train their workforce and create a situation that is profitable for them. And we just have some other duties, off-campus centers and those type of things. A lot of it is relationship building within the community. So there's some tactical things and then some kind of broad, whatever I can catch seems to come my way.
Alan, Dr. Murdock, what is meant by economic and workforce development from your perspective?
Well, from my perspective, I look at economic workforce development, and that's part of my title. But I look at economic development as anything that fills the coffers, right? And by that I mean what helps with our state, city, county government grow their coffers, typically through increasing jobs, relocating companies, or helping companies expand. There's a lot of things that go into that, whether that is the training from the college, that is how the city or county sets up their zoning, how friendly this place actually is to newcomers. Our slice of the pie, though, is workforce development. And so when I look at that, I'm looking at, here are these companies, they have a need. We have people. How do we match these up? And so how do we train folks to get to those jobs that are so needed? I love this work because in my area, short-term training, we can take someone from job A, that's, let's say, more service-oriented, and put them through 120, 150 hours of training and get them into more of a manufacturing-oriented type of position, whether that's manufacturing in the typical sense or manufacturing in the science sense. And that opens up a spot for someone else to move into their previous position. So I like the fact that we are able to help people go from point A to point B. And for us, we are helping businesses fill their needs, but I look at it kind of at a personal level. This is putting people, maybe food on someone's table, or better food on someone's table, or setting them up for sustainability. We're really helping people build a foundation that allows them to get set and move on from there. I probably told you more than you wanted to know. So.
Oh, no, I think that jives really well with my last element of my second question for you. And that is, maybe you can just re-emphasize a little bit to our leadership fellows, because at the end of the day, the results are quite fantastic. Usually when a bioscience company is brought to North Carolina, the governor puts out a statement, or somebody puts out a statement saying, we welcome this company, and it's because of our great workforce. It's almost invariably the second part. So this question really is, and it's kind of maybe straightforward, but why is it an important element to the community college mandate?
Well, just to emphasize what you just said, bringing new companies in or helping companies expand is creating that workforce. And we do a really good job here in North Carolina of identifying those needs with the company. This is workforce development is not a solitary sport, it's a group sport. So working with these companies, we're able to determine what skills are necessary and develop training to pass on those skills to potential employees. A lot of times we're doing pre-employment training. So maybe it's very simple, 20, 30 hours of, here's what it's like to work in this company. Here are the top 5 skills you're going to need, whether that's working with certain specific tools, or there are some things we just need you to understand about process improvement, or how to effectively communicate. This is all important to the college, because the community college really is, I think it helps kind of even the playing field to some degree. Many colleges, like us, are open to mission. There is not a select group that comes in. We take everyone, meet them where they're at, and get them to go as far as we can, or as far as they're willing to go. That's the great equalizer, right? You don't have to be the top of your class to get into our programs. We have a lot of students that are top of their class to get into our programs because they realize the community college is a good place to be. But going back to my previous sense around getting people from point A to point B, a lot of these workforce programs are very inexpensive or free in order to fill the gaps at local businesses. And that's, I think, what community colleges are here to do. They're here to fill that gap. Not everyone is a university person, at least maybe not right now, but maybe later in their life. Hope I haven't rambled on too much there.
Thank you, Dr. Murdock. That's a great answer and really insightful, actually. I'm going to pass it over to Tom Tubon, my colleague.
Thanks, Dr. Murdock. I appreciate your perspectives. You definitely have me thinking about a potential move to North Carolina with how smoothly you have things operating out there. But in addition to the many roles that you play as Vice President of Economic and Workforce Development, you also serve as a chair of a major workforce program in your community. Can you share with us why you think it's important that the emerging leaders in the technologies, like in the biosciences, connect and develop relationships with workforce programs?
Well, I think there's a variety of reasons to do that. One is to help us as workforce people understand what's coming in the future. Currently, I sit on the board of the Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina, and their mission is to help people succeed, whether that's into new jobs or to better jobs. And to be honest with you, a lot of these workforce groups are able to react a little quicker than sometimes education is. Right? So it's important. I would say that we have a very good relationship with Goodwill here. Businesses or organizations we need to look at. And so if you look at your city government, county government, state government, your local chambers of commerce, they're all looking to move the needle forward as far as getting jobs here, better jobs here for the people that they serve. And so understanding what they do will be helpful. They also may be able to give you an entree into some of these businesses. I have a great example. A couple of years ago, I was looking to develop a new program, but by looking at historical data through the Department of Labor and Labor Bureau statistics and looking at advertisements for positions, my analysis was in the next 7 years, we'll have 5 new jobs in this arena. Probably not something we should invest in. But because I had relationships with these governments and these chambers of commerce and these workforce-owned boards, I knew that ABC company was going to hire 450 people in the next 3 years. And so we were able to make better decisions because we had more information. That's one of the reasons I would say you'd want to partner with as many people as you can. This is not a solo sport. It's a group sport.
I think that you make some incredibly good points there. Like many of our colleagues that are going to be attending the Leadership Institute, we teach in the classroom. And oftentimes with our CTE programs, we're so razor sharp focused on what we do in the classroom and our teaching and our skills and competencies that we don't oftentimes connect with our community. And so as a little bit of an expansion, just to pick your brain and your perspectives a little bit more, can you share with us some of your thoughts on how technical programs like what we do in the biosciences, what our programs can do to better understand or define our roles in the community by connecting with these workforce groups? How do we expand on our roles so that we can actually become better leaders?
Well, I think it's developing those relationships, those partnerships with these organizations. There are a lot of smart people working in those areas, but they don't know everything, right? And you can tell your story better than anybody else about what you're able to accomplish. I think it also helps with education. Right now, we look at education as being successful if someone graduates, right? Or they get a certificate or a diploma. That's changing, obviously. I think we all see that. Not only is it important that they get these credentials, now they need to get a job. And that's going to be, I think, the driving factor in the next few years. So having these relationships develops pathways for your students to become employed. It also helps develop, I think, pools of students. Because not only we at the community college looking at entry-level positions, but what positions do you currently have at that business, and where do they need to get to the next level? And can we provide that through our educational programs? And the last piece I would say is, and I'm sure many of you are already doing this, but the advisory boards. Those are prime candidates for your advisory board, so your training is relevant, and that your students walk out with the skills needed for today's economy, not the skills I had 22 years ago installing NICs in people's personal computers, right?
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on community engagement and how we can become better leaders by engaging our partners. I'm going to pass this back over to Russ to hit up another question as we continue to go forward with our interview with you. So thank you very much,
Thank
Dr.
you. Thank you, Tom. Dr. Murdock, you know, we have these people coming in. They're obviously aspiring to be leaders. And probably, you know, because of the recommendations they're getting to get into the Institute, you know, they're probably come to us as leaders or potential leaders in their area of the biosciences. That's not disputed. But, you know, from a workforce perspective, you know, what kinds of characteristics or traits do you think that these people should develop as they, you know, basically inherit leadership profile?
Sure. Wow, that's a big question. There's a lot of answers to it. I would say this: you can almost open up any book that lists competencies or characteristics and grab a handful of them. A couple that I think are important. First off, I think effective communication is extremely important. I use this example in other situations. There's a lot of accountants out there, tons of accountants, people who graduate with accounting degrees nonstop. There's only X amount of CFOs. Because I'm not sure the CFO is a better accountant, but maybe better communicators at all levels of the organization. That's how they became that CFO. That's very simplistic, but you know, I think it helps us people understand that the communication is important, to communicate often and to communicate clearly. Otherwise, if you leave a vacuum, then people will start creating their own communication of what's going on or what's happening. The second piece to this, I'm a little biased because I did write my dissertation on partnerships, but an individual that is able to develop relationships or partnerships internally as well as externally, I think is important. As I mentioned earlier, a couple of times already, this is not a solo job. This is a team sport. You know, so someone that is able to look at developing relationships not only with the lens of what's in it for me, but what's in it for them, and how can we mutually benefit. That raises all boats, and realizing that you probably need to be thinking once to make sure your partnership doesn't go stale. There's one piece to that I would emphasize. I'm not sure how you train for this, but there has to be like a level of curiosity about things, right? So when you're developing a relationship with, say, a company, you have to be curious about what is it they do, why is it important to them, what is holding them back, what would it be like if they were to expand. So there has to be this level of curiosity to help you ask probing questions, to be inquisitive. I said I haven't figured out the magic sauce on how to be curious. I think some people try to do that with a survey that's 100 questions long. I'm not sure that actually works, but you're looking for that type of personality, you know, that wants to know more and is interested in your success, not only their own.
Well, I think that that's great advice, and I've actually seen it. I've had the you know, the pleasure to serve under you, and you've been very instrumental in helping us develop skills. And I don't think I had, Tom, I'm not sure I've ever come across a vice president who did a thesis at the doctorate level in partnerships. So I think that's pretty cool.
I'm actually I wanted to ask if I could get my hands on your thesis just as a read for that, because there's some great tips and stuff that people find, and I'm sure that it's going to be, I'd love to get my hands on that if
Yeah,
you wouldn't mind.
I'd be happy to get it to you, and I would say focus on the references, right? Because once you write it, you're like, oh, wait, I should have said this, I should have said that, I should, you know. But the references are good, and you know, there's some books out there on how to do this, so which are few and far between in a community college setting. So I would definitely take a look at those.
Well, Dr. Murdock, on behalf of InnovATEBIO, I want to thank you today for interviewing with us. I think we had mentioned to you at the outset that this interview will be shown to the Leadership Institute Fellows, the participants, and then we're looking forward to having you back to an in-person discussion with them when we're able to do that. Obviously, during COVID times right now, we're doing everything virtually, but Tom, I think this was great.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing your journey with us and our participants for our Leadership Institute, and how you've gone from working in one field to now managing a group of 13,000, and the work that you do to change lives, from building opportunity, putting food on the table for some of these folks, to really identifying that ladder that people can climb up for advancement. I appreciate what you do and your perspectives, and I thank you for your time. And yeah, this was a great interview.
Well, good. Well, thank you. And thank you, gentlemen, for the time and effort you guys have put in this as well. I look forward to, Tom, at least meeting you face to face in 18 months or whatever, whatever it is.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.